Mr. Shah, what a delight to have you on ET. Thank you for joining us. First, characterize the market environment for us. We started the calendar year on a good wicket, but now looks like Indian markets are losing steam and global growth concerns are back.
Well, let's look at the micro level first. At a micro level, a lot of businesses are still performing very well, despite some of the challenges you can see. But many businesses at a micro level are performing pretty admirably, including if you see some of the results in March quarter. All of them have not come out, but quite a few quality businesses have performed pretty well. So that's one. Secondly, if you look at a macro picture, both at a global as well as at a local level, that is where some of the uncertainties are creeping in. At a global level, obviously things are still in a state of being unsettled. But a key question that we need to consider is how much of that we should try to imbibe and try to worry about, and how much of it we should keep it at a recognition level but at a peripheral level, rather than getting too much governed or influenced by it. At a local macro level, obviously there are some of the concerns in terms of the fiscal balance, as well as in terms of some of the dramatic changes which are occurring in the composition of current account deficit or trade balance. Like imports continue to surge, and there is a pressure on exports to match up to ensure that the deficit doesn't go out of hand. I think oil is a key issue, and all of these issues definitely reflect a sense of concern and a worry, which is kind of reflected in the mood, which is circumspect, cautious, if not there is a bit of pessimism around. But I would say the birth of hope always comes out of pessimism, and I would say definitely at this point of time that things are actually better than the attitudes and the opinions reflect around. I'm not saying that there are no challenges. There are plenty of challenges, but I think mood is more despondent than the reality, and to that extent I would pay attention to the reality rather than so much as to the mood. Concomitant condition for that would be to keep a little longer term view, because when the sentiments are in a state of being muted, you have to keep a little longer term view. But if you do that, I think plenty of good businesses are performing exceedingly well, and not just in terms of their business performance, actually their returns in the marketplace. I have never seen a bigger contrast between how some of the high quality businesses continuously keep making higher and higher grounds in exactly the same environment where a lot of not so quality businesses are falling on a virtually constant basis. So this contrast is something that is important to observe, because when we focus only on index, it doesn't give that kind of a sense of enthusiasm. But when you look within that and look at the individual businesses, there are a large number of high quality businesses which have done fantastically well, exactly in an environment where most people seem to be feeling defeated and if not exhausted by the markets.
So are we potentially looking at a scenario where benchmark indices could remain range bound for a long period, but individual stocks, they will continue to outperform? 90% of the market may not do anything special, but 10% of the market will still surprise us?
Well, I don't know about 90 or 10, whether those will be the kind of numbers, or whether broadly market just doesn't go anywhere what individual stocks do. But it may be useful to surmise it that way, that clearly there is a possibility that for a length of time, till there is a alteration in the kind of mood, or there are factors which fundamentally speaking catalyze or galvanize the situation. Macro level, probably markets may seem to struggle is a possibility, and I think it is useful to keep that as a background for decision making. But I am comfortable that there are enough businesses where the right credentials exist to create value and create wealth, and those are not in terms of merely conceptual ideas. These are actually at a ground level. You are seeing how they are doing, And I'm comfortable about a lot of those businesses to do very well, not just what they've done so far, but I think going forward too.
So the big question is, what will change the market mood? What will bail us out? Valuations, something dramatically will change at global level, or we could see a lot of policy reform from center?
Well, both of these can help, and it is hard to conjecture what will happen when, because these are at the end of the day conjectures when we make about the macro factors. But I would say it is not necessary for some dramatic catalyst to come on the horizon for markets to move one way or the other. Markets have their own, markets are Dodgers market. I mean, they do something very different when people least expect it. Ideal example of that is, I think, end of 2011, and the mood was of unbelievable level of gloom and pessimism, and most people felt that the markets have only one way to go and sink. But contrary to what everyone thought, market just turned out, dodged it and did very, very differently in the first quarter of the 2012. So I won't like to look for some specific headline, eye-popping kind of an event to make markets move. Ultimately, price of a business is nothing but a confidence about a given amount of cash flows and profits over a period of time discounted back to the present. And the perception of that will depend upon how large those cash flows are, how early they are, and how capital efficient they are. And importantly, how confident you are that they are there will reflect in the kind of valuation you are putting on it. But in fundamental sense, it is those cash flows and its predictability and their size and their certainty which determines the value. On that parameter, I'm comfortable that lot of businesses are very sound business models, terrific ability to compound, large size of opportunity, superb evidence of value creation because they are significantly rich businesses in terms of capital efficiency or return on capital employed. And to top it all, these businesses, many of them have very strong, predictable set of cash flows relatively compared to many others. So I'm comfortable that there are enough choices available in the environment. And while we want to do lazy, many times we as investors don't want to do hard work, and we want to hide behind lazy phrases or couch behind general lethargy of the situation. But it is important to do hard work today, recognize businesses, find what is happening to them, see where they are headed tomorrow rather than what they are today. And if that picture looks pretty, then there is a case to buy them, and that is the work that we as investors are paid for.
These are typically consumer companies where cash flow is strong, debt is not there, they have an entry barrier or a moat around them. But consumer stocks are not trading at throwaway valuations. Most of the consumer names either are trading at the peak valuations or nearing the peak valuations.
Which is correct. I'm not saying that all consumer businesses deserve to be bought, because valuation of some of them could be stretched, and to that extent we have to keep that reality in the mind. But it is a myth to assume that very high earnings growth only produce value. To my mind, I think a certainty of earnings is a bigger effect in value creation than just the assumption of a very high growth which may or may not materialize. Equally, I would say quality of earnings is a superior place in terms of creating value rather than just the quantum of earnings growth. I would any day prefer a business making 45-50% return on capital employed, even if it is growing earnings at 15-20%, rather than the other way around. With a mediocre business having a 15% return on capital employed, pretending to grow at 30, 35, 40% is unsustainable. So I think we need to be clear about what are the right filters which will create value. So certainly one of that will be a valuation of these businesses, but we must recognize that many of the consumer franchises, not all necessarily, but many have a very strong moat, very predictable kind of a businesses, and where they are nowhere near their maturation level. I mean, Many of these businesses can go 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times what they are today. And to that extent, that is what we have to, that size of opportunity is what we have to keep in mind.
But are markets front-loading some of these growth in consumer names?
Of course it is, because given the uncertainty of the environment, given the kind of beating people have made while hastily buying low-quality businesses in an assumption of high growth, while neither materialized, quality was bad and proved to be even worse, while earnings growth was merely a pipe dream and never materialized. So a lot of those businesses have made investors suffer a lot. So clearly there is a greater degree of circumspection and greater degree of kind of shying away from taking any kind of intelligent risk. And to that extent, people have moved into what they feel is a perceived safety. So to that extent, you're right. I mean, some amount of front-loading of the growth in the calculation seem to have occurred. But this is not to say that if you have a long-term view that these businesses still will not create value. I'm quite certain that there are enough quality consumer franchises, and some of them may look to you meaningfully, richly valued today, but many of them will go up several times over in future. So that value creation process is nowhere near stopped. I mean, we have a lot of miles to walk before these businesses will tire.
But what's your basic temperament? Are you generally optimistic? You think all the bad news is baked in, or it's time to still exercise caution? Globally or locally, we are still not out of the woods. Markets are cheap, but you may get better opportunities in coming quarters.
That is entirely possible. I mean, better opportunities could come by. It will be, one will have to try to be prescient to say that no, it will not happen. So I would side with you on that better opportunities could come. I would also say that one cannot just assume that everything worse that you have to assume has occurred. So a bit of cautious and careful calibrating is still valuable to my mind. I would only say that it is important to keep the filters rigorous and implement those filters with discipline. So I would repeat that I would prefer predictability of earnings growth rather than just the high earnings quantum of that growth. Secondly, I would put a greater premium on the quality of that earnings. In other words, the return on capital employed and other paraphernalia that goes with the quality of the earnings rather than just the quantum of earnings growth. And thirdly, I would definitely prefer a richer business at a reasonable valuation rather than an inferior business at seemingly very cheap valuation. So I would put a precedence on quality rather than just an arithmetical illusion of a cheapness. Once these filters are carefully calibrated and put in place, aided with the recognition of size of opportunity as an idea, because a high quality business, reasonably priced but wallowing in very shallow waters is not a very attractive idea. It is important to buy a large size of opportunity so that the business becomes a compounding machine aided by high quality earnings and greater predictability of that earnings growth. All that add to the charm of that business. But when there is a pond size is small, just the fish being large is not a very attractive idea. I would like to see large pond, and in that I would like to find a capable fish which will grow to be large, and if it is already large and capable, I would like it to get much larger. That is the combination I would like to hunt. And of course, management quality, ability, vision, execution, governance, all these are very important background material which always remains as a reference point.